Right. So, hi Antonio.
Hi, Tuan.
Yeah, I'm very glad to have you today for the career interest interview. And can you give us like a brief introduction about like who you are and then what company you're working right now?
Yeah, of course. First of all, thank you for having me. So I went to college back in the University of Nevada, Reno, where I worked to get my bachelor's in biochemistry and molecular biology. And I also did my master's right after that in biotechnology. And a lot of my research involved working with plants. And in the process, I had to do a lot of studies with microbes. And one of the interesting parts about my research is that I was trying to develop this method in which I wanted to increase the resistance for some plants. And I wanted to introduce some genes to these plants of interest. And the way that I had to do that is that I had to use bacteria.
Oh,
And that's the one of the ways I started getting into the microbiology field.
I see. So actually, like working with bacteria is the interest. One of the interesting thing that got you into the field, the microbiology, and so so is that also one of your interests in the field because working with bacteria, so like make you feel interested in microbiology?
Yeah, that's one of the parts that I really found interesting, just working with bacteria and how amazing they are, how they can interact with many different species. In this case, I was working with the plants. So
Yeah.
I really like how cool they were because they can do so many things, initiating from being able to put a plasmid inside and make them resistant to antibiotics, all the way to being able to infect the plant and do like a transfection and in order to pass the genes. Because actually, I was working with a kind of bacteria called agrobacteria, and in the original species, this bacteria causes like a type of cancer in the plants.
Oh,
And they have this plasmid in which it has a cancer factor or something like that.
wow.
And technically, I was trying to, instead of putting the cancer or giving cancer to the plants, I was trying to put my gene of interest. So I found it very fascinating how this bacteria and exploring the molecular biology of the bacteria, how it was able to make these modifications in the plants. That's what I found very interesting and very fascinating about microbiology.
Nice. So are you saying that plants they also like having some kind of diseases like cancer, just like human?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like tumors.
Oh,
And in this case, was genetically induced tumors, but it was basically transferred by the bacteria.
oh, okay. So beside microbiology, what area of science you spend time on like learning or researching beside microbiology?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I did a lot of biochemistry and molecular biology,
Mhm.
and I did a lot of molecular cloning, transformation, cell culture. So I got experience in a variety of fields. My most interesting part for me was the DNA cloning, where I was able to work with different types of genes and being able to like put it into different species of bacteria and basically put my gene of interest into like different species of plants. What else did I learn? So I learned a little bit about proteins, transcription factors, but like I said before, the most interesting part about what I did and what I do, I would say microbiology, but I did a little bit of everything throughout my whole research.
So do you think like those lessons and skills that you learned from your past experience also like helping you and apply to your current career right now?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because I would say that with every field, especially microbiology, biochemistry, molecular biology, everything is interconnected. So you might not focus on, let's say, for example, right now, microbiology, you might not focus on everything when you're doing biochemistry, but you start talking about like bacteria and like the way it handles its DNA replication, the way it handles the DNA. So not only bacteria, but like many different species of organisms, like animals, plants, yeast, everything is interconnected. Everything has similarities. So I would say that microbiology, it's been a very good learning process because I'm able to apply everything that I learned from my bachelor's and my master's, and I'm able to incorporate it into my career because you need a little bit of everything. There's some concepts that you need previous experience from other fields in order to understand it better. For example, I will give you an example. Over here in my company, we work with pharmaceutical products, and one of the tests is called endotoxin assay, in which we have to detect the levels of endotoxin. And we use this machine to basically create a line of regression and compare like a standard curve with the levels of endotoxin of known concentration. And then we compare it to the samples. And we also spike the samples with known concentration so we can compare it. So when we obtain the data, we basically get these very nice graphs in which we have to be able to detect the endotoxin in the product, but everything is given in units and concentrations that I learned previously during my biochemistry degree when I was doing PCR and protein purification. So everything is related. It might not be exactly the same, but a lot of the data looks very similar to what I've done previously. So that's why when you go into a job, you start feeling more comfortable, especially if you work in a research lab, because you can start comparing different experiments, different assays, different things that you do, and you can start seeing some similarities between the the things that you see in the industry and in academia.
Right, I agree. And your profile said you graduated from the University of Nevada with a master degree in biochemistry. Can you like share with us like why you decided to go to pursue a master degree instead of looking for a job back then?
Yeah, of course. So the reason why I wanted to pursue a master's degree is because when I was doing my thesis during my bachelor's degree,
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed the research part
Oh, I
of
see.
the research part of my of the career.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to get a little bit more involved
Mm-hmm.
with having to go through literature papers. I really enjoyed reading literature papers, so I wanted to get more involved in that type of stuff. And my professor, he told me that in my master's degree I was going to get more involved. I was going to get more involved in doing research
Mm-hmm.
that was going to contribute to the project that I did during my bachelor's. So I wanted to continue my research and at the same time become more independent, because once you start doing a master's, or even if you want to do a PhD right after your master's, or even if you don't do a master's, you learn to become more independent. You start learning how to conduct your experiments a little bit more in depth, and experiment starts to get more complex. So one of the things that you start to learn is that you can efficiently work independently without having your professor tell you what to do. You can start thinking about your project, and then you can start like questioning and making like theories about what type of conclusions you can get from your research, and then you can start adding more experiments to add more data to your projects. So at least for me, my master's degree helped me become more independent. So right now that I'm in the industry, I feel more experience. I wouldn't say experience with what I do because it's completely different from academia, but at least I can have a sense that if I learn something, I can take into bigger risk or bigger challenges by myself, and I don't have to depend on my higher up to tell me like what to do.
I see. So you saying that you actually apply the skill that you learned from like college to the industry right now, like for like working independently, or like to be able to make decision on your own. So is that some type of skills that you learn from school to
Yeah,
apply to the
definitely.
career? Yeah.
Yeah, some of the things I learned in during my research, other things I learned from other people here in the industry, because just like everything, people do things differently.
Mm.
So I learned a specific way of doing something during my research or from my lab. And then when I came to the industry, I was able to talk to people with different backgrounds, and sometimes people do things differently. So just being able to see how different people conduct their research, but how everything gets you to the same answer, I think is very interesting. How different labs have different ways of doing things to answer a common question.
I see. Mm. So are you now working as a microbiologist at a societal CDMO? So I wonder, like, I mean, some people they may know about CDMO company, but some people may not. So can you tell me, like, what is CDMO companies, and how did you get yourself involved in the pharmaceutical industry?
Yeah, so CDMO stands for Contract Development and Manufacturing Organization. And a CDMO is basically a company that works with different clients, and they get like different types of contracts where they work to develop and manufacture, let's say, for example, phase one, phase two, phase three drugs that companies are doing research on and they would like to get to the market. So technically, these companies are responsible for all of that. We get a contract, and then depending on the necessities of the client, we develop, we manufacture, or we do both. And I got into this industry because, just going back to the plants, I was reading so many papers, and some of the things that I read about plants is that a lot of the medicines that we see on the market, a lot of them come from plants. A lot of these molecules are created by plants, and these molecules have a lot of medical uses. So I started like doing more research into like drug drug development and drug manufacturing, and I started realizing that a lot of these molecules or a lot of these drugs that they create, they actually come. Some of them come from plants. Some other ones, they are similar to the molecules from plants. They have like an active ingredient that makes them very useful for therapeutic uses. So I found it very interesting how you can apply it from one field of science to another one. And also, I think that this industry has a lot of potential to grow. And not only that, but you can help several people by applying your knowledge, because you can create drugs for patients that, let's say, for example, have cancer. You can be part of a bigger picture where you can apply your knowledge for those people that are suffering for a disease that might be uncurable, and you helping out developing, manufacturing, or just being able to help out in the project with these drugs, you can make a change in the world.
Nice. Very interesting to be a microbiologist, huh? So this course is like for, I mean, student like from the University of Florida. The student also specialize in microbiology. So some of them may become microbiologists for their future career path. So they may interested to know more about the field, about microbiology, about everything. So and we have microbiologists now today, Antonio. So like, can you share with us some like just like a daily day-to-day work as a microbiologist? Because some people they wonder how a microbiologist gonna do for their day. Yeah. So can you share with us some of your experience?
Yeah, I can give you some like background on what I do as a microbiologist.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to let you know it looks different from other microbiologists here because we change our task all the time. So sometimes one person gets assigned a project, another person gets assigned another one. But basically, at least for me, when I get to my office, I like to start by looking at my calendar, looking at my planner, because I like to write down a lot of the experiments that I'm doing. So I like to first thing in the morning look at my calendar, look at the things that have to be done, so I can stay organized and I can get everything done before the deadline. And I like to look through all my documentation. I like to keep my notebook very clean and organized, because if you cannot recall what you did 2 years ago, yeah, that's a big problem. You need to keep your lab notebook and everything that you use in the lab very well organized. And I do a variety of experiments, actually. I work with a variety of different drug products. We work with creams, injectables, oral products like tablets, syrups. So some of the experiments that we do are different depending on the type of product that we're testing, but some of the experiments that we do, mainly in this company for the microbiology section, we want to make sure that whatever comes out of this company is free of contaminants. That's why we check for bioburden. So we check that there's no dangerous bacteria or yeast that a consumer can take. We can also test for sterility, making sure that no harmful bacteria it's in the bio before it gets injected into the patient, because it can be very dangerous, especially if it's for someone with a deficient immune system. We do endotoxin. Immunocompromised, correct. We want to make sure that there's no endotoxin. So if, let's say, for example, there was contamination and some of the bacteria secreted endotoxin, and then someone takes the drug or the tablet or whatever it is, they don't have a reaction to the endotoxin, and maybe there's high levels of endotoxin in that bio and they can die. So this job is pretty serious, because our knowledge and our research depend on the lives of many people. So I take my job very seriously, and I come to work very happy to help the community and be able to put my knowledge.
Yeah. So I mean, those experience very helpful. I mean, like, so people like can know, like, actually, like a microbiologist working in the pharmaceutical industry, like they have an idea of what they're doing in the future. So like you said earlier, you enjoy working independently, and you're very good at that. So I just want to know, like, how beside working independently, how you coordinate with other team members or with other departments within the company.
Yeah, so it is very important to be able to manage your work and being able to work with other people, because some of the projects that we do here require some collaboration from different departments. So we need to be able to express our necessities depending on the schedule for the client. Sometimes we have to manufacture or develop some drugs, and we have one department that jumps in and sets up the machines. Some other department monitors the environment. Some other department goes in there and they're the ones that handle the drug product and filling the bio. So it's very important to communicate with various people with different roles, and not only with different departments, but you also need to learn how to work alongside other scientists in your same department. Like, I have to be able to work with other microbiologists in the office. I have to be able to ask them if they finish this experiment before the deadline, because I have the same drug product with a different experiment, but they go to the same client. So we have to be able to meet the same deadline at the same time, because let's say, for example, I'm working on one experiment and then there's another person working in another experiment, but then I finish my experiment on time, but the other person doesn't. Both of us will be in trouble, because even if I finish my experiment on time, if the other person didn't, the client would be upset because we're not finishing we're not finishing the contract on time. So you have to be able to speak to one another, be able to coordinate and make each other accountable. And not only that, but if you are struggling with an experiment or you're not getting the data that you want, you have to also be able to ask for help to other people. And not only that, I learned this from my professor back in college, and he told me if you cannot figure something out, go with your colleagues, ask them first. If they cannot help you out, go to the next level, which is your supervisor. If your supervisor cannot help you, go one level up, go to your manager, and keep going up until you find the answer. But don't give up. Use your teammates as a resource and learn how to work together with them in order to make your work better and also to improve in your career.
Nice, very interesting. So you've been working for Societal CDMO for more than 2 years. And do you like have any plan for your future career path, or you just like feel satisfied of being a microbiologist right now?
So right now, I have learned many things about microbiology. It is very interesting. I would like to stay in the field for a couple more years just to get more experience in the pharmaceutical industry, especially in the microbiology field, because there's many things to learn and you cannot learn everything in 2 years. It might take a few more years to get more experience and get to know all the regulations. But in the future, I would like to move to a more research-based field where I can work with more scientists in order to develop a drug product. And yeah, I that will be my goal for the next 5 to 10 years. Just go to like a different field where I can expand my knowledge and perhaps do something more related to what I was doing in the past, which is working with DNA, working with gene expression, protein purifications. But at the moment, I really enjoy doing microbiology work. So right now, I would like to keep it like that, and then I will think about it later as I move on.
Nice. So I know a lot of CDMO companies, they are private companies. So Societal CDMO is also one of the private pharmaceutical companies in the US. So I mean, and you're working for Societal CDMO right now. I mean, what kind of like benefits you think you receive working here in a private company? So can you share with us some benefits that you receive from working in a private company?
Yeah, some of the benefits will change depending on the company. But for example, here at Societal, we have a very nice policy for PTO. We also have sick leaves. We have volunteering time. So let's say there's like a organization where you would like to volunteer for, Societal will give you some time off for you to volunteer on those programs or for those organizations. We also have these vacations times in the middle of July and December where they shut down the whole company for a whole week and we still get paid. We get a special employee recognitions once a month where they bring food to the back of the building so everyone can socialize and talk about science or whatever is going on with the company. They also bring some games so we can all interact with each other. And sometimes when it's very stressful, they like to bring special gifts for everyone. They have another special event where every single month they do a raffle where people that get recognized throughout the month, they get a gift card for $25 so you can buy yourself lunch.
Nice.
And yeah, it's nice to work here. A lot of benefits. You get retirement plan, 401k matching, and the best part is the PTO. They're very flexible with asking for time off as long as you ask ahead of time. And yeah, it's a good environment. I really like the benefits of this company.
Nice. And just my last question here for today. So like, is it a course for students? You already know. So like, about everything we're talking about microbiology, about like working as a microbiologist. So what advice you have to give to the students that studying microbiology right now? How they're gonna prepare for their career path? I mean, successfully. I mean, like based on the experience of you working in the pharmaceutical industry in general, and then working as a microbiologist. Yeah. So, like, what kind of experience you gonna share with the student who looking for a career or to build their career later in their life?
I would say that an important part to work on the career of microbiology is just learn the basics. For example, myself, I didn't study microbiology in general. Like, for example, for my bachelor's, I just took a few classes that involve microbiology, but my career didn't focus exactly on the field of microbiology. And what helped me the most is just learning the basics. And as I mentioned at the beginning, everything is interconnected. So sometimes when you work with microbiology, molecular cloning might come up, or replication might come up, or antibiotic resistance will come up. And all of those things have connections with molecular biology. Maybe someone work with molecular cloning, they work with plasmids. So all of those things are very important because in order to do any of those experiments, you needed to have some background. So everything that you're going to do during college, especially if you're doing research, will come up in the industry. Especially if you're trying to get an entry level job, if you never work in the industry, you have to start from somewhere. They don't expect everyone to know everything from the beginning. So just learn the basics and start growing outwards and start picking up some terms, start picking up some knowledge from different types of people. If you have colleagues that are doing something different from you, try to learn from them. Try to read a lot of literature papers that have some relatable work to what you want to do in the industry or in the field, because you might end up going to a pharmaceutical company or you might be going somewhere else. So I think your interest can change the more that you learn. For example, me, I never thought I would work in a pharmaceutical company when I started doing my research 4 years ago when I was working on my thesis. It just came out of nowhere my last year when I started working with the plants and getting this research to go for my paper. I started developing this love for microbiology. So just focus on what you like to do. Try to keep learning, not just for yourself, but from other people, and just apply to a lot of jobs. Apply to a lot of jobs. See what's on the market. Update your resume, and then just try to see what you can get in the market.
Cool. I mean, overall, thank you very much for having you here today to share with us some of your experience. So thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank you,
for the
Tom.
interview. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.